I couldn't even begin to tell you everything, but it started when I was 3. I had my own bedroom. I was an only child. I would see faces in my window, especially at night. I'd scream, and my dad would come in, and I'd tell him there were bad men. He'd say it was just a bad dream. It's possible, but it was real to me. Then I started seeing shadow people, but they seemed to be children like me. I wasn't scared of them. As I got older, my senses grew more, and I could sense when a spirit was near. I became afraid of them, because there was a malevolence about them. A hostility. We had what I thought was a demon that stayed at our back door in the utility room. I hated going in there after dark. As an adult with more experience, I know now it was a guardian, although I don't know how it got there. It was serious, solemn, but not hostile. But at the time I was afraid anyway. One time in my mid-20s, I went to visit my parents and stayed a few nights. I stayed in my old room. I woke in the middle of the night hearing a dog growling. I was confused and listened to determine where it was coming from. It was snarling too. I realized it was not a dog. It was a hellhound at the foot of my bed. I was terrified. The only way out was to go through it to my door since it was close to it. I jumped out of bed and ran to the couch in the living room. As I've gotten older, I'm 47 now, I've been able to start communicating with them. I've had encounters with several human spirits, ESP in 2020. In the last few years, there's been a lot of activity in my apt. Last Oct, I was laying in bed at noon watching YouTube. Suddenly, I heard a crash. At the foot of my bed, I had a table with a cloth on it, as well as a salt lamp, and a bunch of jars. I got up, and something had yanked on the cloth and pulled all the jars to the floor, breaking them. Other stuff was also on the floor. I didn't even feel anything in the room with me, so that was weird. I have so much in between that I've experienced. There's no doubt in my mind that there are things in another plane that can come over to ours.
I don't remember much, but my mom told me when I was little, I had an imaginary friend named Joan Curdy. I would talk to her and play with her. My mom asked me who I was talking to, and I told her, then said she protects me from the bad people. My mom asked me if her and my dad were the bad people. I said no, just the bad people. My mom then told a story of the hired hand that lived in the back 2 rooms of the house back in the 1800s. He was like a caretaker. He was apparently not a very nice man in life. My mom and I were going to bed and were going through the walk-through closet in my room. She could hear someone breathing in there. We go into their room, which was in of the back rooms, and get in bed. She hears something and looks over, and there's a man standing there. She tries to wake my dad, and he grabbed her arm. He said if you wake him up, ill, kill him. She tries to again, and he says it again. She then tried a 3rd time, and he bit her arm, then disappeared. She woke my dad and said, look. My dad said there were indeed bit marks on her arm. He thought maybe she bit her own arm in her sleep or something. Then not too long after, my dad had seen someone walking through the back bedroom one night and thought it was my brother. But he never came back up to the room. My dad got up and looked, and my brother was still asleep. They decided to remodel the room after, and I was up there with my mom. We had heaved double-paned storm windows on the house. It took a lot to open and close them since they were so old. I remember looking out the window and watching the old wallpaper get tossed out. My mom told me to be careful, and I said okay. I felt like I needed to get back from the window, pulled my head inside, and right after the window slammed down. After they put the wallpaper up and let it set for a few days, it looked good. One night we were in bed, and you could hear the wallpaper peeling off the walls. It peeled off in perfect rolls, so it may just have been old glue or something. But with everything that had happened, we thought it was that guy was pissed because they redid the room. So a few days later, my parents are visiting with some neighbors, and they're showing them old pics of the house, and my mom panics and says, "That's him." It was a picture of the people that lived in the house, and one of them was the man that bit my mom, the hired hand. They also asked about Joan Curdy, and they said she was a real person, and she was buried in a cemetery not far from there. I've grown up around things I have never been able to explain away. Some I have. I definitely believe in the paranormal, and that we stick around for a while after at least.
Forced to note that there are certain things that I have experienced that I cannot explain well in a rational way. To explain to you, my father-in-law had his house built on an ancient archaeological site he absolutely had no right. It was a hospital. We just moved. I was 9 years old. I slept upstairs. There are 2 bedrooms, connected by a bathroom with a mezzanine. It was in the evening. I was in my bed on my right. There was the door to my room open, which led onto the open mezzanine, where we could see the light from below, with my parents watching TV. On the left is the bathroom door. I was in my thoughts, and like every time something strange happens, I had the feeling of having to look to the left of my bed, and then I see something floating above my bed. It didn't have the shape of a human being. It was actually shapeless, with undulations surrounding it as if it were flying. It was all black. I remember this time I have never seen a horror film. I thought I was going to die. I saw him rushing towards me. A child's reflex, I hid under the duvet. I felt cold and it was painful. It took me a while to come back to the surface, and then everything had disappeared. So I thought I was crazy. Afterwards, I realized that this was not an isolated case. It was just the first time, and my brothers and sisters also experienced similar strange things.
My first encounter with it was when I was 3 years old. I vividly remember laying on the bed, alone in the room, when suddenly a young man in a suit entered my room, sat down and talked to me. I never met him before, and after a few minutes of some comforting speech from him, he simply stood up and left. 10 years later, I recognized this young man from my childhood on the picture on the gravestone at the cemetery. It was my grandfather who passed away before I was born. Second encounter happened to me when I was the first in my family to learn that my aunt passed away that day. I took a nap during the day and had a dream where I saw my aunt in some bedroom with glass doors leading to the beach. She told me she didn't even realize she passed away and felt as if she simply fell asleep and woke up there. She told me that she heard us talking to her after the surgery, failed hydrocephalus treatment, when she was in a coma but couldn't speak up and let us know. After a brief conversation with her, I woke up to my mother, her sister, returning from work announcing that my aunt passed away an hour or so ago. I already knew that. There are several other times when I saw my past relatives in my dreams, visiting me and talking to me about something going on in life I was struggling with or giving advice on the matter. Last example I'll provide in regards to dead people was when I was taking out the trash and looked up to see if my neighbor old lady was at home. I lived in the block and she lived above me. Instead, I saw someone peeking through the window before noticing me staring at them and hiding away. I tried it again by turning away and back, and it happened again a couple more times. Then I decided to confront whoever it was and went to knock on her door. Nobody answered. I gave up and went back home. An hour later, I heard her go upstairs to her apparent and asked if she had guests visiting, or if someone stayed at her place while she was gone. She was confused and shook her head no, saying that her family will be able to visit her only at the end of the week. Later that evening, she invited me to her place and asked me where I saw the person in question. I showed her, and then, after a brief silent pause, she went to the other room to bring a photo and asked me if it was the person I saw. It was her husband who passed away a few years ago.
Me and 3 other friends were at an old abound house in our neighborhood when I was in high school. I had a huge crush on one of the girls that went with us, and as the 2 other friends went in the abandoned house, we stayed out to watch the stars. A few minutes go by and me and her start talking. We talk about life and home and all the stuff between. Then halfway through one of my sentences, I get this huge death panic feeling deep in my chest. I start to panic and look behind me across the road. Nothing was there. I wrote it off as being a pussycat because I wasn't supposed to be out that night. We keep talking on her car's roof and I get the feeling again. She notices this time and looked at me funny. I said it was nothing, but when I looked across the street, I noticed what looked to be a road sign I didn't see before. Then after talking again, I look over and across the road I see a huge shadow of a humanoid figure. It started slowly walking towards us as it crept out of the field across the road, and I yelled to everyone, "It's time to go." And before I finished saying go, everyone in the house yelled and ran out. They also saw a huge hand push open the back door of the house, and standing there was a black shadow of a tall woman. As we all pile into the car, the girl that I like throws it in reverse and gets back on the road. As we do, I get the feeling again and look behind us. There were 2 giant shadows standing in the road just watching us. I've believed in the paranormal ever since and have been in many investigations.
One thing I can say is that the deceased normally visit you immediately following their death. This is the stage where their energy is the highest. I lost my boyfriend 6 years ago. Aside from my father's passing, that was also a devastating and sad point in my life. I would find myself waking up in the middle of the night with a strange feeling, and find him behind my couch or bed staring at me, my boyfriend. I used to think it was my imagination. He would also appear in my dreams. I went to his grave once and talked to him, told him I missed and loved him and I would be okay. Told him to move on and not worry about me. He knew the issues I was dealing with in life at the time. Wanted so bad to help me. After that, the appearances stopped and I was able to sleep. Wasn't my imagination. There was also a coldness to my back and the constant blowing in my back making my hairs stand up. This life here is just our physical one. Our spirit lives on after death.